Everybody, let's call the meeting to order for the Arizona State Parks Board. Let's have a pledge of allegiance, Ms. Terry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Shall we jump into a member roll call?
Yes. John Sefton.
Present.
Dale Larson.
Here.
Jeff Buchanan.
Here.
Robin Sayed. Present. Sarah King. Here. Terry Palmberg. Here.
6 out of 7 and only one unappointed vacant one. So with that, I'll read through our new mission statement this year as defined by the team and the governor. As board members, we're gathered today to be the stewards and voice of the Arizona State Parks and its mission statement to connect people to the outdoors and history of Arizona to build a lifetime of memories. Isn't that nice? Well said. A little more brief and maybe memorable. That's memories. So let's jump into agenda items. Number 1, consideration of action to approve the minutes of the June 19, 2025 board meeting. I have a motion.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Item number 2, FY26 budget highlights and financial overview. Mr. Brock is here to give us a presentation.
I've
How
never
we're
been
managing our
first.
resources.
I'm not sure what to think of that. But this is a good way to lead off our meeting today because we really have primarily good news. And so we're happy to share it with you. We're going to start by going through some of the highlights from our FY26 budget. So a few of the key takeaways from this. First of all, we were successful, as you know, I know already, getting an appropriation increase of $448,000 for our family camp out, which should allow us to more than double the number of events that we have out there. That appropriation includes an additional 2 FTEs. Currently, it's Louis by himself. So Louis all of a sudden will have some company, and also another $230,000 in one-time equipment purchases. We are desperately in need of a new vehicle, a new trailer, a lot of the activity equipment, kayaks, paddle boards, the other equipment that are used out there with the family camp out program. Great news. We had, as we've been coming to a conclusion and wrapping up the many ARPA water improvement projects at our parks throughout the state, we have a known increase in the operation of those new systems that are out there. So we collected that information to the best that we could estimate and took that to OSPB and asked them for an appropriation for operation of all of our new water, wastewater, and drinking water facilities out there, which they included, and we're happy about that. I think you're aware also that we are rolling out broadband at 6 of our parks throughout the state. Most of those are coming to a conclusion right now also. Probably the one exception to that has a question mark is our Catalina State Park, where we are on National Forest Service land and we're waiting for some approvals from them. But the cost of those new broadband facilities out there is going to be an increase of $242,000 annually. And again, the OSPB was successful in appropriating an increase to cover that. In addition to that, we have another $1.5 million that was allocated to the SLIF fund from general fund for grants. The Heritage Fund received another $1 million grant as well. Our major maintenance appropriation of $3.6 million is somewhat formulaic, but we're really happy to have it. It's desperately needed, as you know. And then there was an additional $500,000 appropriated for the Verde River Park.
Kevin, real quick.
Yes.
Historically, some of the SLIF funding came with very specific, the additional allocation came with some very specific projects in mind. Was this year identified anything from the legislature or governor's office about specific projects, or is that
No.
just into the
No
grant
specific,
fund for?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, no specific projects. It's, will be processed through our grants team as it has been over the last several years and open for all comers that qualify.
Very good.
So a number, one really positive note also, it's been a while since we've talked about the fee increase, but we'll talk to you about that on our next chart here. But it's been very successful. And part of that is enabling us to show that we have the financial stability with the governor's office to help fund some additional staffing. Back in the 2007-2008 recession period, the parks organization lost almost 100 FTEs. And most of those have never been restored to this period of time. Currently, we're at 261 FTEs for approved level, which is, again, short by 100 or so. In my own observation is part of that gap that has been filled over the years has been taken care of by amazing volunteers that we have in our park throughout the state. We're so grateful for their input, but we desperately need the additional staffing. So we did make a request, and it is part of our FY26 budget request for $3.1 million for 37 FTEs. You can see a breakdown of what those 37 FTE functions would be. As we continue to pursue building up our law enforcement, there would be a request for 11 in that category, 5 for water compliance. Again, all of our new water facilities are driving the need for additional oversight and more up-to-date operators on it. Interpretive and educational programs, 7, park maintenance, 12, and then IT and marketing also. So, as I said, really good news on the fee increase. I think the last time we talked, we had, at least with hard numbers, we were looking at maybe 6 or 7 weeks. Well, we now have 7 months of a trend to be able to show you. And you can see that we have had a consistent ramp up. Again, the fee increase was effective on February 25th. In the month of March, we were up by 24% year over year. Are about 584,000. There was a last minute run in when the fee increase was announced for annual passes before that went up. And so we also saw what I anticipated as a brief pause as the public consumed all these fee increases that were out there. But we have gone from 16% in April up to 32% year over year increase in August. Really a good sign. The estimates and the models that we put together really put a 30% year over year increase is probably about the maximum. So the fact that we're there is a good sign. I don't know that every month year over year is going to be at that same level, but I believe a conservative estimate on an ongoing basis will be at least 25% on a year over year basis, if not more. Overall, we believe that we will add about $7 million annually conservatively with the fee increase. Part of that will just start kicking in now. Part of that will be the annual passes. Again, since there was a big run on them before the fee increase, we believe sales will start picking up. If you look at the number of annual passes that we sell, the standard ones, it's just under 18,000. If you take only half of those standard annual pass sales and increase the rate to the new rate of 200, which is the rate that we've been at for years for our premium pass, that will increase revenue by another $1 million. Also, the cancellation fee that we implemented of $20, anything that was a reservation prior to February 25th would not receive a cancellation fee if in fact it were canceled. But now, and since on average our parks are being reserved 6 months plus in advance, we'll just now be going into a period where we'll see what happens with that. But we have had over 40,000 cancellations annually for the last several years. I know it's a big number. It's actually closer to 45,000. Our intent was to be able to really help change behavior so that people were not doing multiple sites and then canceling at last minute and so forth. But even if we had only half of those cancellations, we'll recognize another $500,000 in revenue. So combined with $1 million of revenue from annual passes, $500,000 from cancellation, another $5.5 million or more, a 25% increase on the base reservation, on the base campsite reservations, we should see $7 million or more on an annual basis. Really good news. It's good news that the public has accepted this and that we now have these funds available to help build up staffing and other really key resources that are needed within our park system.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin, you mentioned that the public has accepted this. Have there been a trend in any pockets of the state parks where there have been complaints or where people have come forward and said this is unaffordable, or has that pretty much been managed in a very limited, minimal fashion?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, and let me defer to Michelle for just a second. She would be from our CIO over here, or excuse me, our Chief Information Officer. She would probably be best equipped to
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Member Larson. At first, we had complaints coming in, but it was really minimal. I was really surprised by how few we got. And since probably April, I haven't had any. They may still be commenting in the visitor opinion surveys. I haven't gone through all of those for everyone who camps, but it's really died down quite a bit. We had some areas, specifically Dead Horse Ranch State Park in Cottonwood, and then Catalina State Park in Tucson, where there was that, you know, people would go every single day to those parks because they're right in the communities. Those two parks had the most complaints. But in general, the complaints trended toward the annual pass prices and then those two parks, and it's been really quiet since it happened. And for a lot of those people, when we responded and kind of explained our funding structure and how everything worked, they said, oh, okay, I get it. So I think it really helped to have all that information out there ahead of time, and then to have all the staff have the talking points and know exactly how to explain why we were doing it.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Michelle, and I'm glad that kind of captured the essence. You know, national parks, their fees are increasing as well. And while this seems to be a good management tool, in the long run, our parks are still loved to death. And without having the amount of income and revenue to be able to address the maintenance needs that all of the parks have, I think this is a theme that we should, in terms of communications, newsletter, of what the benefit that these fee increases are doing, not just to increase revenue, which Kevin, you've talked about, but actually how these increased fees are going to improve our state parks, improve it so that they're able to get ahead of this incredible surge of popularity with our parks. So
Yeah.
I think that understory is something that we need to capture in addition to just the financial statistics.
Thank you. And I know also that our director, our executive director and deputy director are pursuing other sustainable funding opportunities. It's been an active pursuit of theirs over the last few months, and they're moving forward with that as well. They've put together a team. We know that that's a need that we're going to have to make our parks successful long term.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to, your actions to approve this fee increase, the ability for us, because we are a state agency and our funds are appropriated. So the second step of that, and they're able to do exactly what you're talking about, is our budget request that Kevin just presented. And so that advocacy of telling that story of, we've raised these fees, now it's time to appropriate the funds so that we can hire the staff to address these demands that we have and we need to manage, is just so critical. So thank you for your comments.
All right. It's always fun to see how the size of our parks, the revenue that they're generating, just give you one metric to measure that by. You can see this was the fiscal year end FY25 revenue. Several parks that are $2 million plus: Kartchner Cavern, Lake Havasu, Slide Rock, Patagonia, and Catalina. And much to the disappointment of our Lake Havasu team, which always is measuring that, Karchner exceeded them by a few thousand. We apologize to Dan, but they've got work to do.
Did we provide some emotional support for the entire
Yes.
crew?
Yes, we have made counseling available.
Counseling available, okay. Employee assistance programs,
Yeah.
et cetera? Perfect.
So we like to also give you a view, looking past and forward at each of our three primary funds, SPRF, our State Park Revenue Fund, SLIF, and OHV. You can see the cash balances here. At the end of fiscal year 25, our State Park Revenue Fund had a cash balance of $36.4 million. With the $7 million of additional revenue that we're anticipating this year, we believe that we will recognize another $29 million of revenue into that fund. Revenues expended during the fiscal year are projected to be just over $50 million. You can see the breakout, 21 million of that for operations. Current year CIP, coming year or prior year CIPs that have been capital projects that have been approved. And we do have the $10 million placeholder in there for the Veterans Memorial Park that is being pursued. And so the ending balance then would be 15.1 million. Our SLIF fund, the same view for you here. At the end of fiscal year 25, we had 23.8 million in that fund. We anticipate another 11.9 million. That is just level with the same income that we had this year. Again, 97% of the SLIF fund is actually fuel tax based, and just a few percent of that is actual boat registration. The outgoing expenditures for that fund this year are about 18 million. You can see the operating fund at operating expenditures at 7.4, and then the breakdown of grants from prior years, current year, and some very prior year CIP projects that are just trailing off. I apologize, CIP is capital projects, so in case I didn't explain that. But again, the ending balance there is anticipated to be 17.6 million. All right, the OHV fund, year-end cash balance was 17.7 million. We anticipate another 4.6 million in revenue being received this year. That's the same level as the prior year. And then you can see the outgoing expenditures are funds being spent at 16.6 million. Just a very small portion of that is the operating expenditures, and then grants for both the current and prior years there, with an estimated ending balance of 5.7 million. We always like to remind people. Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Buchanan with a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate park staff for helping to gather this money and then getting it out through these grants dominantly to law enforcement agencies, and within those, a lot of them go to our county sheriffs, as we're all tracking. This, my observation is that this is the problems generated based on this, and the need for law enforcement is going to go up rather than down. So I just want to plant the seed for the future as we continue to participate in the study group with the legislature. We might need to put something or advocate something in legislatively to help our county sheriff get more funding to actually be able to enforce the law with respect to OHV. Anyway, I'll pause there, but good work by State Parks making all this happen. It's not primarily our job, but we're a vehicle to help these law enforcement agencies get what they need.
Great perspective. Thank you, Jeff.
Very good. Just a quick overview of where the funds go by category. You can see that in our State Park Revenue Fund, that almost 2/3 of it is salary and benefits. Another 40% of it's utilities, maintenance, equipment, the type of ongoing daily operating expenditures that you would anticipate. And then in SLIF, 80% of that is for salaries and benefits, and about 18% of it for non-salary, primarily marketing and our IT groups through the central office. Did we skip a chart?
That was the last.
Really? Okay. Very good.
Those are all your charts. Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you, sir. Good work. All right, item number 3, Chief of Grants and Trails, the 100-day retrospective and future vision. Ms. Nina Lindsay.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, very happy to be here. If you want to go to the next slide. Really just wanted to give you guys an overview of what I've been working on the last 100 days. I've been here about 5 months, but I spent a couple months with Mickey, and then the team and I have been doing some work over the last 100 days. So really just wanted to talk through what we've been doing over the summer. So we have some photos here. We've been definitely out in the community doing some ribbon cuttings. Matt and I were able to do an OHV ride last Friday up in Show Low where the weather is amazing. We had such a good time. It was pouring rain, but I was like the happiest I've ever been. And doing a lot of brainstorming with the team. So we've had a good summer. Next slide. So we really just want to start, right, everything starts with the staff. They're definitely the most important resource that we have. So we wanted to just talk about what that looks like over the last 100 days. So at the bottom of that pyramid, everything we do is really building on the legacy that Mickey started and that foundation that he put into place. Everything he worked for with the team over the last 10 years, we're really kind of using that as a springboard to take things to the next level. Whenever you get a new boss, there's always new expectations. I think people have been on both sides of that. So setting those clear expectations, here's maybe how it worked under Mickey, here's how I'd like things to work. As part of that, also updating all those team norms. So what do one-on-ones look like? What do team meetings look like? When do we come into the office? How do you call in sick? Kind of working out all those things that happens when you have a new boss. Job descriptions has been a huge thing. So when I got here, one of my first things was to reach out to our HR department and just ask about, you know, what are the job descriptions? What are people responsible for? And what we found through that process is that it's not real clear. So I think working with the staff to figure out what should those job descriptions look like, what do they look like now, and what do we want them to look like going forward as we look at workload. And then that acronym, I don't know if people have ever seen that acronym, Wasabi-Wa. This is left over from my Lean Six Sigma days. It means what should be happening and what's actually happening. So all of those things that we just talked about, in order for me to know what should be happening, I have to know what's actually happening. So I've been spending a lot of time with each member of the team just talking through what are your tasks, what things are you working on, what are the gaps that you see, what is your career goals, what do you want to be working on, what are you looking forward to in terms of where the team is going. And I think finding a way to really put all those things together into a cohesive team. The huge thing we've been doing is a ton of increased collaboration. So starting with fiscal, we've really been working on a lot of checks and balances. So one thing about me, I like to have somebody who will kind of be a second set of eyes on my work. So if I get a message from marketing saying, hey, Nina, we're looking at putting out a press release for how many grants that you did last year. I want to be able to say, well, here's my number, but fiscal, will you check that for me? Is that what you also show? And then if they don't align, then, okay, we need to take a minute and figure out why. Is that an error in my math? Is it a spreadsheet issue? Are we not tracking? So we've been establishing some monthly meetings with our fiscal team and really exploring new ways to report on all of these various funding streams. We have been keeping marketing quite busy. So all of you that are here in person, I think you guys got one of these. This is our brand new grants package that the marketing team has done a great job on. Yes, they deserve a round of applause for sure. Do that. Literally my first week here, I think it was like day 5, Jeff and I were at a site visit and we got back in the car and I said, we don't have anything to give them? Like everybody's furiously trying to write down all these, there's a lot of information and regulations. So this is really nice. It's got some good kind of overview of grants funding. There's a really handy flyer here about match. We get a lot of questions about what counts as match, what doesn't count as match. And then each individual funding has its own flyer, which kind of goes through the process, the requirements, all of that. So we're very excited. Everybody that sees it is like, give me 10 of those. I can't wait to hand them out to all my friends. So we're happy about that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Nina, just on that point, the match, because that's the one that we hear the most about, and particularly the grants that require 100%
Sure.
match with it. So I think, first of all, excellent tool and resource for all of us to be able to have and advise. But it would be, I would like at some point in the future to talk about the creative, innovative ways that you've gone about with your team to help communities, tribal nations, whomever it might be, reach that 100% match. Because I can't imagine that's any type of an easy task at all, especially for communities that don't have that financial wealth to be able
Yeah.
to say, we can do it this way or that way. So just as a future information report to talk about the match game, so to speak, and how you're able to address it in each of those areas.
Yeah, the team really is great at sort of what I call creative accounting and coming up with a lot of different ideas. I will say one thing that's on my list in terms of a vision for the team. Right now or in the past, what we've really done is a lot of split funded projects to help with that. So maybe we do a certain amount in LWCF money and then we use some of that money in Heritage to account for the match. The administrative burden to do that is pretty high. So we want to continue to be able to offer that as an option. But one of the ways in which we can leverage that funding is to work with other philanthropic organizations. So I've been having some conversations with Arizona Community Foundation. We were approached at a ribbon cutting recently by a philanthropic organization in the north part of the state who's interested in having kind of being part of a list that we could hand to people to say, if you're having trouble coming up with those matching funds, here are some folks who we're working with who are interested in supporting your work.
Excellent. No, I think that's a real genuine need that we need to take a look at. And particularly with LWCF, since that's the one that is presumably permanent, but still. And then also maybe storylines of communities that were unable to find that match and how we can address their needs in other areas. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. In terms of other things that we've been doing with marketing, we are working, this is an ongoing work in progress, working on updating all of our website pages. Ideally, my goal for our website pages is it's a way for people to get a little teaser, but then ultimately reach out to us. What we really want is for people to call us. So people looking at the website, they don't need to worry about, do I apply for this grant versus that grant? Am I eligible for that or that? That's our job to walk them through. So really updating those to encourage people to reach out to us. Just this past week, we had our very first quarterly grants newsletter that went out. I don't know if anybody here got that. If you didn't, please let us know. We'd love to add you to the list. We've really been getting some very positive feedback about that. It's had a really good open and click rate. And we're getting some other emails that people are engaging with us. So I think people were really hungry to be engaged with in that manner. So we're really excited about that. Web Grants is our grants management system that we use. And so we've really been working with Dulles Tech, who's the vendor that provides that software, to provide regular bi-weekly trainings for our team so that everybody on the team gets a baseline knowledge of all the different things that system can do. Web Grants is actually a really robust system. There's a lot that it can do, and we haven't been using all the things that we can. I think there's more potential there we can tap into. Part of that is reporting features. We're putting a lot of money or a lot of data into Web Grants, but we're not pulling a lot of it out. So working with them on setting up those reports, making sure that we can run those on a regular cadence so that we can understand what's happening in there. The Attorney General's office we've been working with, Lori and Wesley have been great. We've had several meetings with them just looking over our contract documents, our project agreements. We have something we call Attachment B, which kind of goes through all the legal language. So we wanted to just get another set of eyes, make sure, are all of these based in a regulation? What do we need? What do we not need? So we appreciate all the work that you guys have done on that. And then our friends over at SHPO have been teaching us their ways. They've provided a SHPO 101 training to us, and we've also been working on transitioning. we were sort of in this weird place where we were kind of half managing the historic preservation and they were half managing the historic preservation grant. So we've now made a kind of clean break to transfer that over to them. That's been really positive. They're asking a lot of great questions. They come back and ask questions that make us think about how we could be managing things different. So that's been really a positive. So I love this image because one of the metaphors that we've been using on our team is, you know how when you go to clean out your closet, you kind of take everything out and then you have all these piles, like that needs to be donated and that's trash and that needs to go back in the closet and that needs to go into storage. That's sort of what we're doing as a team. We've kind of taken everything out of the closet and we're looking through everything, so that involves a lot of continuous improvement. So one thing that we've implemented is Asana, which is a project management software. So, you know, one thing about Mickey, I hope that Mickey donates his brain to science because I don't understand how he was keeping track of all of these deadlines and tasks in his head. I can't do that. I need a software to do that for me. So we've been experimenting with that. I think we're figuring out how to use it and setting some expectations. As I talked about, we've continued to work on web grants. We're cleaning up a lot of data in there, archiving old information, making sure that things are closed in our system and in the finance system. We're having a lot of conversations as a team about metrics. So what does it mean as a team for us to be successful? What are those metrics? What's team metrics versus individual metrics? How do individual metrics roll up into team metrics? And the team has been really, really engaged and excited, I think, about finding the ways in which we can really quantify the work that we do and be able to communicate that to the community. We're always trying to find the balance between travel and office. I think maybe a lot of people are doing that. I think there are definitely times when it makes sense to drive 4 hours for a 1 hour meeting and drive back. But not all the time. So how do we make the decisions? What are the levers that we push to know, yeah, this one's really important and I need to hop in the car and go up there, versus maybe we can just do an initial virtual and get a feel of it and then we'll follow back up with it in person later. So, and I think the other piece of that is really being transparent amongst the team to say, hey, Nina's gonna be up in Show Low on Friday, what else do we have that needs to be done while we're up there? So making sure that when we are making these trips, we're being as efficient as possible, which ends up in some long days, but it's very much worth it. Our grants manual has been a massive undertaking. The team has done a fabulous job. We've been updating scoring criteria and again, working with marketing to just make the layout a little bit more engaging. We're putting the finishing touches on it. We were all kind of in my office, like, you know, looking at various pages and trying to figure out things this morning. So at next month's board meeting, I'll be presenting again to talk to you a little bit about that updating scoring and what's going on with our grants manual.
I know it's been a minute. I recall when we were first on the board that there was, it seemed like several meetings that we held addressing the scoring criteria and the challenges that staff were having. So it'd be really interesting to see, knowing that a number of us were involved with that last exercise of criteria development and approval. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's not easy for sure. And we went through, I don't know, several meetings where we really, to the point where I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know how many points that should get. But I think it's been helpful for us to really go through it and say, what are we trying to do? And then what level of information needs to be communicated at what time? So our grants manual can have a higher level scoring criteria. Here's high level what we're looking for. And then we have other documents internally that give us more guidance about here's how you assign points. But maybe the public doesn't need to know we give 1 point for that and 1 point for that. So I think we're finding that balance also. One last thing I'll mention before I talk about what's next is all that stuff I just mentioned was really additional stuff I put on the team. All their normal day-to-day stuff they've still been doing. So, you know, Juan and Alec have still been doing claims and getting claims approved and through the process and getting new contracts out. They've been doing a lot of technical assistance with sponsors across the state, helping them figure out how to do things in our system and how to submit claims and what's eligible. Jeff has been working with our partners at National Park Service and ADOT to get new grant applications through, process amendments. we've kind of turned OHV on its head, so Matt's been working on kind of thinking in a new paradigm a little bit, and making sure that we can really get out a lot of grants, so you guys are gonna see those at the next board meeting. In terms of what's next, those numbers that you see, that's what we're looking for in terms of grants that we intend to award. Kevin talked about SLIF and Heritage. Because we anticipate that that's going to be a more competitive process, the 1.5 million for SLIF and 1 million for Heritage is actually fairly small amounts of money compared to what we've gotten in the past. So once we get the scoring criteria approved through the board, then we'll start really building that competitive funding opportunity, which we hope to release by December 1st.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Quick, so all the federal, the ORSPA, all the monies that came as a result of the post-pandemic and all that, is that all gone?
Pretty much all gone. We were just talking that we have kind of a spreadsheet that has tabs, and we just about closed out our final ARPA tab. So most of that money, I think, has gone out. The time of COVID is finally past. We were very excited to learn that we got an increase in our LWCF funding this year. That's an almost 35% increase, which is really amazing when you look at just nationwide how many grants are going away at the federal level. So we were very excited to see that. We're really looking forward to getting some new projects using that funding. Where we have our normal allocation of RTP, and then we anticipate we'll do probably about 8 million in OHV this year. We've been working on de-obligating funds from some old projects. As I've talked about, we're just really trying to clean that up. And so through that process, that puts some money back in the pot. And so compared to what's coming in and what we have in there, I think we'll probably do about 8 million. So that'll give us a total grant impact of almost $31 million this year.
I know real quick, you might have mentioned the issues with national parks and particularly LWCF and the approvals necessary for grants. How are you feeling today on getting things through for that $9 million, right?
What a question for a public meeting. No, I'm kidding. It's No, actually, we also have a new project officer at National Park Service, so she has also been learning the ropes. And there have been some things that they have streamlined. So some of the amendments, especially time amendments, they have been able to streamline that, and they are going to be able to get those through, I think, a little bit faster. Some of the other new projects, they are taking between 6 and 9 months to get through the process.
Okay, thank you. Great answer for a public meeting.
So we talked about grants manual, we talked about funding opportunities. Well, we're definitely going to continue working on cross-training staff. We really want people to be able to fill in for each other. We know life happens, people have families. We want them to be able to prioritize those things as necessary. So making sure other folks can jump in. We are looking forward, hopefully, this fall to re-engaging the OHV ambassadors. So we're, one of the members of our team is going to be doing some CPR training and some ambassador orientation a couple of times this fall and then once in the spring, hoping to really get them going. And then we're hopeful in the spring that maybe we'll be able to do some show me rides. I'll keep you up to date. Again, working through those job descriptions and classifications, as you can imagine, that takes time. That goes through the Department of Administration. So that's probably going to be a year-long process for us to get all of that updated and kind of get people set up with what their job descriptions are going to look like. And then standardizing processes is a lifetime of work. So we will be working on that for the next couple of years, making sure that everybody understands, here's the process we're using, here's when you use it, here's who's responsible for that. So we'll continue standardizing those processes. And I think that's my last slide, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Members of the board, any questions?
Very good.
Yeah, Nina, thank you so much. And team as well, thank you. All right, moving on. It's probably one of the most interesting agenda items that we've seen in a while. Consideration of action to approve the Armijo Ditch Agreement. Heidi's gonna walk us through this one.
Okay.
Chairman Sefton and members of the board, Deputy Director Weber, thank you for having us. And we are going to talk to you about the Armijo Ditch at Red Rock State Park and ask your consideration of an agreement with a neighboring property. I'll give you a little bit of background information. Red Rock State Park compiles pieces of 5 or 6 different old homesteads, and one of those is the Juan Armijo homestead. In 1892, Juan Armijo came to Sedona was previously called Red Rock. So came to Red Rock and started scouting, and then in 1896 was able to prove up and establish a homestead along Oak Creek there, and again, what is part of Red Rock State Park today. In 1906, he and his son Ambrosio purchased some water rights and completed a ditch that runs through the property of Red Rock State Park, as well as the neighboring property that today we call Cross Creek Ranch. There's more to it, but for the sake of time, in 1941, Jack and Helen Fry, Jack Fry was TWA president, they purchased what was called Smoke Trail Ranch, and the Lean Hoots, Willis Lean Hoot owned Cross Creek Ranch, which is across the road and again adjacent to Red Rock State Park. Eckankar was the in-between owner between the Fries and State Parks. There were religious movements in the 70s and 80s. Eckankar did file the water rights for the Armijo Ditch and its feed. In 1981, there was legislation after Bruce Babbitt went onto property, and Etherly tells the story in that he was evicted by the Eckankar cult. And, it took a good period of time, but in 81 that legislation passed, and then between 81 and 86 there was a complex land exchange, followed by development, and then 1991 Red Rock State Park opened. Inherent in that was acquiring the ditch agreements, which Heidi will talk to you about here in just a second, between the Lean Hoots, which were the heirs that in turn, the Lean Hoot heirs in turn sold to what is Cross Creek Ranch today as a homeowners association, where again the Fries were the predecessors to Eckankar and established those ditch agreements. In 03 is when the current owner of CCR came into play, and then shortly later in 05 there was an initial agreement that was set up between State Parks and Cross Creek Ranch, which I'll let Heidi dive into parts of that.
Yeah, so just a little bit more about the, no, they did it. Yeah, they did it. A little bit more about the 2 agreements that have come before. And what we're seeking to do is have one more little amendment to it. But in 1951, Jack and Helen Fry went into an agreement with their neighbors, the Lean Hoots. Lean Hoots already had water rights, and the Fries had water rights. But the Lean Hoots wanted to use the Armijo Ditch to transport water to their property rather than pumping it directly from the creek, which they were permitted to do if they had wanted to do it that way. So part of this agreement is the Lean Hoots agreed at that point to do all the maintenance on the ditch so that the water could be transported via the ditch through the Fries property to the Lean Hoots property. And that agreement was still in effect when State Parks took over ownership of Red Rock State Park. And at that point, the agreement still existed with the Lean Hoots, who currently, or at that time, still owned the property. In 2005, so after Cross Creek Ranch took over the Lean Hoots property, Cross Creek, approached the State Parks and wanted to make sure that that agreement was still in effect. They still wanted to use the Armijo Ditch to transport that water to their property. So the 1951 agreement's still in place, but then the 2005 agreement to reflect the new ownership of both properties. Part of that agreement also included creating a pedestrian access for Cross Creek Ranch residents, as long as they had a valid annual State Parks pass.
Good.
It was still Cross Creek Ranch's sole responsibility to maintain and provide the funding for maintenance of the ditch.
this has gone very smoothly for many, many years. There was really no issues with this agreement until about 2021. Cross Creek Ranch approached State Parks, me. They approached me and we're trying to get some assistance. Extreme weather events have increased, we know this. So maintaining that ditch has become much more expensive every single year. More repairs on an annual basis than they had experienced before, and they just hadn't budgeted for this amount of expenditure. So they approached State Parks in 2021 trying to seek some financial assistance from us in order to maintain this ditch. And as I mentioned, there's been an increase in frequency and extremeness of this flooding that has occurred. It doesn't happen every single year, but it's happened more years than it has been. So the costs are been much, much higher.
So in the last 4 years, not only have Heidi and other state parks members, including the AG's office, multiple representatives from the AG's office at this point, and then Cross Creek Ranch and their representatives have gone back and forth and around on all sorts of small details. But in short, to recap, that 1951 agreement held that the Lean Hoot side, or what today is Cross Creek Ranch, would maintain the ditch completely at all their own responsibility. Furthermore, they gave a right-of-way to a ditch crossing back to the Fries at that time. So they very much wanted the right to continue that use of ditch. In 2005, again, the same, as long as they're coordinating with state parks, they come in and they maintain the ditch at their own expense. And our offset at that point in time was allowing that access through the pedestrian gate on the west side. We don't want to change much of that today. Heidi and I and State Parks as a whole, the way the 2025 revision, ultimately, the state parks they've asked for half of their annual costs. We've asked that it would not exceed $12,500. They would obviously have to provide receipts for the work done before they've been reimbursed. They have already registered in the Arizona procurement portal to make all of this possible. The one side that Heidi has asked for and that would be better for Red Rock State Park's operation is that we take control of that gate back. We control the lock on that. Heidi will change it on a cyclical basis. But they will still be asked to, any users of that gate accessing the park will still be asked to purchase a valid annual pass and update it on a regular basis. I'm going to hand this back to Heidi for some of the benefits for why we feel strongly enough to come down here and beg you to approve such an agreement.
So that ditch does benefit us, even though the whole purpose of the ditch, since the 2005 agreement was to get the water to Cross Creek Ranch. This ditch has been in service for many years, possibly since 1907 or around then. So a secondary riparian area. Red Rock State Park is known for its riparian area, the area along the creek. But a second riparian area has developed and been maintained along this ditch, which is away from the creek. These trees would not have been there without this ditch. They will not continue to be there if this ditch doesn't have water in it, at least part of the year. We also want to maintain our water rights. So every year the ditch has been running. I've pulled some water out of there and kept a little spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. Just to maintain our water rights in case anybody does question us about it. We might want those water rights at some point for something, some purpose for the park. We also want to maintain that secondary riparian zone. Those trees will die eventually and become hazards if we don't continue to provide them with some kind of water. And also, this will maintain a positive relationship with our neighbors. If you look at the slide here, what I have highlighted, unfortunately there's slightly different seasons of the year in these two photos, but you can see May of 2023, and then in August of 2025, I've circled some areas, and you can see some grayish trees. Those trees, hopefully they're dormant, but they might be dead. And that's because the ditch, which runs right along the bottom of that U, has not had water in it for 2 years. So that's a problem. On the next slide, I think my animation, hopefully it works. I have to click again. Oh, my animation didn't work in the new version. Oh well. What I was gonna do is gonna slide back and forth to show you, oh, the trees are alive, oh, the trees are alive. So right now, it's about, I think 7 ash trees that, if they're not dead, they're dormant. Fingers crossed, they're just dormant. But that trend will continue all along the bottom of that U shape if we don't get some water back in there. If this agreement with Cross Creek falls apart, state parks will have to take over completely funding keeping this ditch going in order to maintain those trees, or we're gonna have to do a lot more maintenance to try and get rid of some of these trees as they continue to keep dying.
So obviously the water rights are very important that we maintain. We're standing there. That second riparian zone, those that are familiar with Red Rock, the Kisva Trail goes completely under, the bulk of the Kisva Trail is going underneath that secondary riparian area. Neighborly relations, always try and keep good relations with our neighbors and state parks in the surrounding area. So we just ask you to please consider approving the continued use and the benefits that we've highlighted.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Hank and Heidi. Questions?
Yes. Why hasn't it had water for 2 years?
So this year, 2025, because of these ongoing, it's approved, we have to wait a minute, let's rediscuss stuff and just some changes. Unfortunately, Cross Creek Ranch got a high-powered lawyer involved on their side. And so he kind of delayed things, put a lot of suggestions for changes that we brought back to us. And we're like, no. So it kind of really, this whole 2025, it just pushed it back. In 2024, they did a bunch of repairs. And then an extreme weather event came through, and they'd already used all their budget. So we didn't get water, even though they did all the work. Before they could finish the work, it was all blown out again.
So are they in support of this redo?
They are, so after,
Including their lawyer?
well, no, he's out of it. He's out of it now. So essentially what happened is after they wanted all these changes, after consulting with the AGs, and the administration, like we're not gonna do that. So we sent it back to them one more time, this is it, do you like it, or do you wanna not do this? So we're willing provisionally to help them with this funding, as long as you guys approve. But their lawyer had talked them into all kinds of things that just were legalese nonsense.
And then if I may add to that, the last half dozen years, Cross Creek Ranch was coming asking for financial support because the cost of maintaining the ditch was more and more. At the head of it, there's a diversion that pushes the water into the ditch, and when that blows out, it's a lot of work and it's significantly expensive. In 2024, that diversion blew out once in the winter and they repaired it, and then it blew out again. That's that monsoon season. Since then, it's just been about conversation as opposed to any further ditch work.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan with a question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, first of all, I'll just say I'm all for the agreement. I'm all for maintenance of a riparian area. I just wonder how much of what's going on this year is the effect of lack of rainfall. I mean, most of our state right now is in either extreme or exceptional drought. We had essentially 0 months in either northern Arizona or southeastern Arizona. So I know that's got to affect water levels in the creek. Does that affect this ditch as well?
It has absolutely affected water levels in Oak Creek, but because the diversion dam has been blown out for 2.5 years, 0 water is going into that ditch, no matter what the level of the creek is.
So the dam is currently in disrepair, not functional.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's an earthen dam of sorts. We can keep calling it a dam, but it's not quite.
Any other questions, Mr. Vice Chair?
Mr. Chair, first of all, from a legal point of view, does the does all liability now fall on Arizona State Parks for anything that might happen that could be a legal claim against this area? Or is it a shared liability agreement with the CCR and the like? I'm just curious if we are more or less or the same vulnerable to acts of liability one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm gonna look straight to the AG's office. The same?
No, the liability still is on the HOA. So it's still their responsibility to repair everything and do everything. It's just that Parks is now contributing some money, $12,500 in order for them to do that, but it's still there. It hasn't shifted our liability other than that we agreed to pay that money, but all of the liability to repair and the responsibility to do everything is still on the HOA. Does that make sense?
First of all, good, thank you. That was a good answer. Is that in this amended agreement where it's very clearly defined that the liability rests with them and not with us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
is the payment gonna be made? We're just gonna give them the money right up front, or do they have to submit bills and show work in progress?
Yeah, so there will be a pre-meeting where they have to ask access and describe the work that'll be done. And then once the work is completed, they'll submit an invoice for 50%, only up to $12,500. And they are already registered in our Arizona procurement portal. So we're set up to go ahead and process it appropriately from the procurement perspective.
Very good, thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you.
One more quick question.
Yes, sir.
And this is a subjective answer on your part. Do you have confidence that they're gonna be able to do their due diligence to repair the dam and do all those things, or is that to be determined?
Until 2023, they had no trouble. We had water in that ditch for part of all growing seasons. At some points in some years, we would get some water and then a storm would blow it out. But we had already pulled out. I lifted the gate and got my water out. And now, if they're not getting theirs, that's on them.
And what's the length of time? Is this perpetuity or
5 years,
5 years?
and then an additional 5.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I believe that in that they never asked for help, they only wanted access previous to that, the 2021 through 2023 years. I do believe that this contribution will allow them to just go back to doing the work on a regular basis, because they want the water as bad as we do. They want to maintain their water rights, and they have other beneficial uses that are downstream. And again, if it all fell apart, I think that we would wind up with a much more costly bill to maintain our side, and that means we're running the water to their property line, and then just that's your responsibility. So whatever happens from here, so it goes.
How long are the ditches on State Park property?
It's about 1.25 miles.
Okay.
And if we did have to take over, the final place that I usually take water out is right below the Eagle's Nest cliff, and it's still another, maybe 1/3 of a mile to their property line. That's where the water would stop if we took over. It would stop at that field, and it wouldn't even get close to their line, so they would be out of the picture. I would not be repairing it on our property from there to their property.
How many members of CCR are State Parks pass holders?
That's a good question. I sometimes will hear them out of my office when they're buying their pass, but at the moment, they're buying their passes, they're submitting their pass receipt to CCR and getting reimbursed. They currently, that's why I wanna have access or control of that gate code. They are currently the owners of the gate code. So I don't have a good number. It's a combo gate.
So it's nothing significant.
I don't have the combo, it's just a pedestrian, put the combo in, unlock it, go through, put the lock back on.
Climb over it. So, well, I guess where I was going with that is that we don't really have public access to the rest of the ditch or the environment. The trail goes further, it looks like a trail because it's being used that way. I would love to walk it myself, I'm gonna be up soon. But there's no, there's no contribution to state parks on their land, right? It's
No.
gated, it's,
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
we're creating an access point for members of CCR only.
Okay,
It was
so
created
they're
in
separate.
2005, yeah.
The ditch where it enters their property is not the same position as that gate.
Different location.
The formal trail, the Kisva Trail that walks along the ditch on Red Rock State Park, ends, and then there is some form of a trail along the ditch as you enter their property, but that's 1/3 of a mile below the cliff face that holds the gate up top. What is that by line of sight? From like where the ditch comes into CCR and the pedestrian gate? They're just separate
They're
areas.
separate, they don't walk along the ditch.
Yeah.
The community members who have passes don't walk along the ditch. Up on the ridge above the creek is where their gate is. And they have to walk down a small little trail that we created back in 2005 just for them, which is probably, 200 yards. It's not very far. That hits on one of our trails. So it's not associated with the ditch at all. It's just a pedestrian access where they can access instead of walking all the way around to the front of the park.
And then to elaborate on the passes in the gate, our desire, Heidi's desire is to take over control of that lock, cyclically change it, have better control of that, because it is only their area.
This call will be
that's accessing.
recorded.
But then, in the old days, they would buy a package of annual passes and then distribute them to their homeowners. And what's currently
This call is
happening,
no
what we're
longer
finding
being
with is
recorded.
that the homeowner comes and purchases it, and then they apply to their HOA for the reimbursement they feel they deserve.
We can't just sell them 12,500 worth of state park passes.
Now that they're
And they can distribute them
Now
however
that
they
they're
wish.
$200, I don't think, they have a lot of older folks who
That
don't
don't use
exercise. They're not, there's no reason for us to force them to buy a pass for a household that's not going to use it.
From a gift clause standpoint, we're cleared, because this feels like we're giving an allocation to a private entity that we really have, other than the investment in the ecosystem. From a
What a
legal.
question for a public meeting.
We're conducting public business.
No, yeah, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. But yeah,
If it's,
That came up, Mr. Chair, I think in 2005, when that was, I believe, to our office. Obviously Wesley wasn't even there yet. I don't remember what the outcome of that was. We did, as far as for this amendment, with the 12.5, we did explore everything and felt comfortable with the arrangement at Parks with Heidi, and we went up and met with Heidi and walked it and talked with her through the issues, and in the conversations we had with the attorney, we felt that with what Parks wanted to accomplish with the parameters that were very specific, it would be an alright situation for Parks at the time.
I really appreciate that. Because in making these types of agreements, obviously, ultimately it falls on us, right? As a board, and wouldn't wanna have anything in this line, because from its appearance sake, it feels one-sided. But then for the public benefit of $12,000, which isn't that much, as we know, the gate, water gate, sits on state park property.
There are gates along,
Gates all along.
there are gates all along, yes.
You're talking about distribution gates?
Or the distribute, the head, and that
The diversion dam,
diversion dam.
it is not.
Okay.
It is just beyond our property. Technically, if you look up the cliff from the diversion dam, the land up here is owned by a trust of some sort. I can't remember the name of the trust. But this is also something that was brought up, we talked about this with the previous AG on this. And it was determined, there was a right of way there, just historically, to get to that diversion dam to repair it.
Okay, so we do have a right of way to take care of any type of business along that line.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific details, this was back in 2021, 2022, before these two AGs were on the project. It was determined at that time that we were good to go.
So between staff, historical knowledge and exercise and day-to-day operation, in addition to historical AG review and acceptance, everybody at this point is confident that we've got a good agreement to move us forward. Nominal investment, especially when we consider the environmental impact for the area. Any other further questions?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the Armijo ditch agreement as presented. I think this is just fascinating, by the way. I really do. This sounds like Arizona. I mean, it just says all the bells and whistles of something that's been going on. So kudos to you for making this thing happen. And I know it's been a lot of bureaucracy and HOA and the like. Anyway, I certainly move to approve.
And I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Because of the nature of this, let's do a roll call vote.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Robin Sayed.
Aye.
Sarah King. Aye. Terry Palmer.
Aye.
Excellent, very good. Thank you staff for the hard work. Let's make it rain up there.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5, ladies and gentlemen, Arizona State Parks and Trails Volunteer Program. If it weren't for the volunteers, a lot of stuff wouldn't be getting done, right? Catherine Richards, Volunteer Program Manager. Catherine, thank you.
Good morning. Well, I have the best job in the agency. And I get to work with some awesome people who in turn get to work with our volunteers. We couldn't do it without volunteers. Our parks would not thrive without our volunteers. I'm just gonna go over a little bit of fiscal year 25 and what the results of that were. We had 815 volunteers contribute, 172,481 service hours. That equates to a financial value to Arizona State Parks of $6,605. That's astronomical. They're incredible. Our volunteers break down into 430 females and 385 males, so go ladies. The average age is 64. I did a little bit more research and I did discover that between the age of 18 to 50, we have 121. So it really is heavily 64 is the average age, but we rely a lot on our retirees. They're the ones that have the time. They're the ones who travel out throughout the country and can come and stay at our parks and camp and be our camp hosts and our tram drivers and our interpretive guides. They're amazing. We have 534 local volunteers. Those are the volunteers who live within the area and who come to serve our parks, and then 281 during fiscal year 25 lived on site and volunteered for us. Let's go ahead, next slide. Okay, then I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of the nitty-gritty of our volunteer program. I get to work with 23 amazing volunteer coordinators. They work very hard in making sure that they're bringing the right people on board, that they are vetting and onboarding people who really are passionate about conserving our natural resources, who love Arizona State Parks or parks in general. They're very diligent about who they bring on board. We do not have any trouble receiving applications for volunteers who want to volunteer for us. We recruit for specific things, but in general, they flock to us. So, in the fiscal year, our volunteer coordinators vetted 1,291 volunteers during that year. That averages out to about 234 new volunteers being vetted, completely bringing on board 234 brand new volunteers. We have a lot of returning volunteers, snowbirds who come back to us, and then also our on-site volunteers who are repeat volunteers. So what I want to highlight about that is our volunteer coordinators, they are our rangers also. So they're doing double duty. Their primary role is to be a park ranger, and then they're also gifted with being able to be a volunteer coordinator, which requires them to review applications, interview our applicants, do reference checks, do the training, and then have oversight over them. So it's a second full-time position for them. And I am so honored to work with these folks. They are amazing. It requires diligence on their part. It's not easy to go through those applications. It's not easy interviewing and doing those reference checks. And I don't know if you've ever done reference checks, but they're boring. You know, typically you don't put a reference down that's gonna give you a bad reference, although they do. I have had those. So what I want to say about our volunteer coordinators is that they are true leaders. They lead their peers and they lead the volunteers. I'm so proud because I went over our statistics this last year, and I'm just really proud, although it hurts my heart to have them leave as volunteer coordinators. From the time that I started in January of 2020 until present day, I've been able to celebrate that 8 of our coordinators have promoted to assistant park manager. 7 have promoted to park manager, and Hank promoted to regional manager. So it's really a great stepping stone, and it's a great learning tool for our rangers to learn how to be leaders within Arizona State Parks. And like I said, my heart aches when I have to say, okay, so you're leaving me? But at the same time, I get out the pom-poms and I'm their biggest cheerleader, and I am so proud of them. So yes, we have wonderful volunteers and we couldn't do it without them. But I want to shine a light on our volunteer coordinators that serve this agency so well by bringing in the right people, managing them correctly, training them appropriately, and retaining them as our volunteers. So that's what I have to share today. And we have a video for you.
Members of the board, any questions, comments?
I do, Mr. Chairman, excellent, but just have a question, because you do this vetting process, which is very comprehensive and thorough. Catherine, in the event, and I see there's labor-related volunteer work that was evident. So if a volunteer is injured while they're doing that, are they considered then an agent of the state and would qualify then as far as the state protecting them in the event that, health insurance or anything else didn't cover whatever it was that they had?
Yes, the state has a secondary insurance policy for that situation. We really encourage our volunteers to make sure that they have primary medical insurance coverage. But let's say I can give you a story. We had a volunteer who actually was working, got bit by a dog. And so they went to urgent care, got treated, got taken care of. They had a copay of $72 that was out of pocket. So they were able to file a claim with the state and get reimbursed that $72. So anything out of pocket that their medical insurance doesn't cover, up to $25,000, is reimbursed by the state.
Very good, thank you, appreciate that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to give kudos to Catherine. She does an incredible job. This program is like our secret weapon. And it's not just, we have amazing volunteers, and they are often, many of our volunteers are retirees, and if we had to pay them what they're worth on an hourly basis, we would be bankrupt in a day. We could never hire the quality of volunteers that we bring in and the way they connect us to the community. Catherine does an incredible job, and I love that she highlighted too, this is a leadership pipeline for our staff. They are tested and tried. It's not an easy job to manage volunteers, to bring them on, and wow, does that make great managers? And you see that in the data she presented, and our family camp out, again, Catherine. So just all roads lead back to Catherine. She's a great ambassador and leader in our agency. So we're really excited we get to highlight her today.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Catherine, personal note, it was the first summer of COVID, and I was at Full Hollow, and I happened upon the huddle. It was spread out, but it was the huddle of volunteers, and boy, did they really, the amount of above and beyond at that point in time, where I think it was hourly checks at the restroom and, really hypersensitive distancing, that kind of thing. But the volunteers really demonstrated a brotherhood, sisterhood, and really definitely made a difference for everybody.
It's community for them.
It's community,
It
yeah.
is community for them, and it's a wonder to watch. I'll go to their volunteer recognition events, and I'll just sit back and I just watch the dynamic amongst them, the pride that they feel, the honor that they feel to be part of our team. It's really quite fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
What a great way, what a
It's
great
a
job.
nice job.
Thank you very much. And in that roster of 800 and some, do any have experience building diversion dams?
I'll see what I can find. It wouldn't surprise me if they would.
There's an engineer in there somewhere.
Well, there are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so as a matter of business, I need to do a quick recap on item number 4 with that joke transition. We did, the Arizona State Parks Board did unanimously approve the Armijo ditch agreement, so as noted, so for the record. All right, so item number E, future agenda items.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan with one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Buchanan.
So this is a little bit of a complex situation. I'll try to not take too long to explain it. But I think you all know that I'm on the Game and Fish Commission as well as the Parks Board. And there's one place that is of mutual interest. There's a number of them, of course, but in one case, I want to talk for a second about Roper Lake State Park. And, it's a thriving park, does great, all kinds of wonderful things out there. But the property is actually owned by the Game and Fish Commission. And, the commission still has at least some liability for what happens at the park, even though it's administered and completely managed by state parks. So we on the Game and Fish Commission explored what would it take to just transfer that property to state parks. And in the end, it's very, very difficult. And in fact, one agency cannot gift it to another agency. As we understand it, we would have to get complete appraisal of everything of value, the land itself and all the installation and property on it, which is probably property of state parks, and then sell that. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It certainly doesn't make a sense for either parks or Game and Fish, and it doesn't make sense for our taxpayers who would be footing the bills for one agency to just gift the property to another one. The current lease agreement expires, as I understand it, in 2027. So I know the Game and Fish Department is very interested in exploring that with parks to ensure that that the Game and Fish Commission is not liable for what happens on the park as they currently are. And it's in nobody's interest to get rid of this as a state park, but I just wanted to encourage our staff at state parks to work with Game and Fish to try to get this thing fixed before the lease expires. And, and obviously, even if this is state parks property, the Game and Fish Department is going to continue to stock fish and everything just like they do at other state parks. So I'll just pause and see if anybody has any questions. If not, that's it from my end.
Thank you for that, sir. And yes, so staff will be able to keep monitor on that and ensure that we have the appropriate agenda item and action opportunity prior to that lease expiring. Thank you. Any other future agenda items? All right, so on to item F, the Executive Director's Report on Current Events. Sarah, will you be handling this call?
No, actually, surprise. Director Broscheid is on the line.
Nifty trick.
I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, I'm a remote, so I'm in the Buckeye State, taking in some personal stuff, but I figured I had time to sit in on the board meeting and appreciate doing this remote for you guys. So anyway, we had a lot going on. We had to really pare this down for time's sake, but just kind of want to run through a couple of the items. And I think the first one is I can't see the slide, so I'm going blind here. So okay, bye.
National Association of State Park Directors Conference.
Yeah, I don't know. It was on my screen and now it's gone. So anyway, George, Kevin, and I just got back, actually it was last week, from NASPD conference in West Virginia. Had a really great conference. As you guys know, you go to those conferences, you get to meet folks and you get to learn some and talk to some vendors. There's some really cool stuff out there. Probably the biggest news that came out of that was the recent secretarial order having to do with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. I haven't been a park director as long as some of the others have, but this is probably the biggest opportunity for state parks in the nation right now. And I mentioned earlier about our $9 million increase. That's the largest Land and Water Conservation Fund appropriation we've ever received for Arizona State Parks. So the secretarial order laid out a whole bunch of things. I can forward that to you all so you all can read it. But in the gist of it is it increased stateside funding and it's expanded eligibility. Chairman, I think you mentioned it for non-federal match. As you know, those are really tight restrictions. They loosened those up a little bit, but probably the biggest opportunity we have is the National Park Service Director, which I don't think there is one right now, is required to review the LWCF manual and provide recommendations within 30 days. And so without a state parks or a National Park Service Director, either acting or confirmed, the states, in talking with Secretary Burgum had given us the opportunity to provide our recommendations. And so we're gonna hustle to try to meet that. But that manual really describes how the program is implemented, how we can streamline reviews and really sort of take opportunity of re-looking at the program to make it much more efficient. So Kevin Lilly is the Assistant Secretary for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. He actually attended our conference, which was a first for a long, long time, and gave us that opportunity in person as he spoke to basically every attendee, but specifically the director. So needless to say, at ASPD, you'll be working with the SORLO, and we are going to be engaging on this opportunity 100% to make sure that the program stays true to its original intent, but it also is modernized to deal with a lot of the issues, particularly for grant recipients that are struggling sort of with the match and eligibility and a lot of those things. So we're real excited about that. So I guess we could jump, and you can see my face there. In case you guys missed me, there's my face there with Earl at one of the social hours there. So, so next slide, the APRA conference, our staff was there in force, doing presentations, attending presentations, networking, and as you know, APRA conference has really turned into a very important annual event, and our team performed numerous presentations about all the things that we're working on, and there's some of the pictures of the team that was there. So they all did a really great job. Next slide. Kevin mentioned earlier about the family campout program and the appropriation increase we received. So we're engaging right now in hiring program manager and a senior ranger as prescribed in the budget. But we also received a $100,000 grant from the Governor's Office of Youth, Faith, and Family to help us with essentially all of the supplies and poles, tents, and paddleboards, as you can see. And for the shout out, this is really Sarah Weber's doing. She has contacts in the governor's office. We've been, of course, we've been receiving awards at cabinet meetings and other events on the family campout, and this got agency directors looking at it and saying, yes, this is something we want to be part of. And Sarah really made this happen, so we really appreciate her and also the governor's office agency there. $100,000 to that unit of the governor's office is a lot of money. And so we really appreciate that. We're working to make that happen and certainly give them full credit for that program's success too. The next slide, here's our Ranger 101 program. This is sort of it is our Ranger Exchange. It allows new Rangers coming in to learn from Rangers that have experience, and they share ideas and network and talk about issues and talk about how to handle things in this, I won't say it's a little more than an orientation, but it's very important for the tenured park rangers to teach the less tenured, and then they can share ideas. I believe this idea actually came out of a lot of our park rangers enjoying a conference together and started to brainstorm ideas. And they said, geez, wouldn't it be great if the parks in the south could learn from the parks in the north, and they could really, share those experiences and leadership and approaches to problem solving and other things. So the next slide here, almost done here. We're going to wrap up some events coming. If you all desire, you're always invited to these. But the apple picking at Slide Rock, September 15th. The next slide will show you Taste of the Bridge, the wine tasting up there on September 20th. And then Everybody Runs Catalina State Park on the 21st. And the big one, which a lot of us will be going, including yours truly, on September 27th. We're rolling out another brand of beer That's Rockin' River Ranch Rye IPA. It's a tasting event. This is the first people there will be able to taste the first batch of an IPA that'll be rolling out a dedication of Rockin' River. And I know many of you up there for Mickey's retirement, so hopefully it will be fall. As we're out there and not as windy. So anyway, that's kind of a quick snapshot, and I'd like to take any questions if there are any.
Excellent, thank you, sir. Any questions from the board? All right, excellent stuff. And item G, current events. Board members may present any current events. Any current events or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to recognize the marketing team. We're always on TV these days. It seems like the state parks. It's wonderful. Great job.
Yeah, great exposure throughout the state for sure. And item H, call to the public. Any public here to talk? All right, our future meeting dates are set, October, November, and December, all here at the office until we describe as different. And with that, we will adjourn with a gavel.